Okay, thanks for joining everybody. Today we are going to be discussing some of our favorite features that are in all the ad platforms. So between the three of us here, I think we've got about, 20 years of experience in either the Google Ads platform or the Facebook Ads platform. And over the years, we've just seen all of these different ways that the ad platforms just make our life a lot harder. We kind of see them as, let's call them platform revenue generators. So we see them as ways that, whether in, let's be honest, I think they're intentional that they make your ad account less efficient for their own gain. I think we're just going to kind of take turns and talk about which of our favorite kind of changes or features that are kind of in the platform. And, we can probably just leave in the show notes, hey, here's like the list of things that we think that you should either not use or, double check to make sure that they're not defaulted on and that kind of thing. So yeah, I'll go ahead and start. Our favorite one this year is actually from our good friends over at Meta. And what they did is they decided that they didn't want us to do audience exclusions anymore. So, our approach has always been like we try to narrowly target like different personas through different interest targetings. And, in order to keep those audiences clean, we'll say like, hey, there's this audience, and then we'll exclude interests from other audiences that we're using so that we're not like overlapping. So for some reason, Meta decided that that was not something they wanted us to do anymore. And when you're a trillion-dollar market cap organization bringing in billions of dollars a quarter, I'm kind of like, why'd you do that? Like, don't tell me you don't have the resources to add that little tiny feature. So, we had to change some of our strategies as far as like audience building to kind of accommodate for that. I think it kind of inherently, made the ad platform less efficient. And I think we're kind of seeing some increased CPMs year over year. I'm not sure if that's specifically due to that. There's all kinds of things that go into an increased CPM, but that just certainly did not help. So that's my favorite one for this year. John, what's your favorite one?
My favorite one. There's quite a few. If we wanted to stick within Meta, I would say I'm just kind of looking through. They've added so many different things like AI features to the ad builder these days. And I know Calvin was going to talk about Advantage Plus Creative and Assets. But just a few other things that I see in here. This isn't relatively new, but multi-advertiser ads, where your ads appear alongside other ads in different placements, and
Hmm.
it's really just taking a little bit more control away from you and where your ads are going to appear. So it's always good practice that we turn those off. One of the things that I really like to do, and this is just good context for ad building and Meta in general, is retain as much control as you possibly can. Like, don't let Meta serve ads. Don't give them the extra leash to serve ads over here, serve ads over there, change your creative, change your copy. So multi-advertiser is really one thing that I always ensure is turned off. The other thing that is relatively new are meta site links. And we're kind of going back and forth about these. We think that they will be beneficial if you control them, which you can, and add them where applicable. But the auto-generated site links, and to take a step back and explain what this is, it is essentially, once you put the destination into an ad, Meta will scan that page and say, hey, there's a lot of information on this page. If it's a product detail page, Meta will probably bring in like other categories of products and say you're just a sporting goods retailer and you have a category for like soccer gear and baseball gear and whatnot. Like, you might be running an ad to a product in directly to a PDP for a soccer product, and Meta will say, well, I also see at the top of the page you have all these other categories, so here's a site link to the football gear, here's a site link to the golf gear or whatnot. So it's and it really fills it out. I think it lets you add up to 15, maybe don't quote me on that number, but but it will fill out 15 with whatever it deems relevant, most of which are completely irrelevant to that specific ad. And like I said, there's probably a time and a place for these. We haven't dug into it too deeply yet, but we think if you can control it, adding some more click options wouldn't be the worst thing. Just a chance to raise engagement and get some traffic to your site. But again, even if those are controlled, it is pulling away a little bit of the control that you have, because a user, you could have a perfect ad set up to land on this PDP or this collection page or this specifically made LP, and then a user gets distracted by a site link and clicks on that. Now you're still getting
Yeah,
traffic
yeah.
to your site. That's great, but it's really kind of destroying the intent of the ad itself, and again, taking away some control from you. So I would say the two things I would call out are the multi-advertiser ads and the site links, auto-generated, especially on Meta.
Yeah, and that's kind of something we see with anything that's kind of like auto-generated these days. Like if you aren't careful, like they'll just generate everything for you. And I mean, as I think anything AI generated goes these days, like it can be okay, but you definitely want to like keep an eye on it, and you don't want to let just anything go on out there. So yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's
Calvin, what's on
definitely
your mind?
yeah, it's definitely important to be able to oversee everything and be able to make sure you know exactly what an ad is going to look like in the wild once you put it out there. And a big issue that seems to happen with Meta and their Advantage Plus Creative specifically is they use AI to, do a lot of different things like enhance. They use like, sorry, let me just look here real quick. So in Advantage Plus, they do a bunch of things that if you're not careful, a lot of these are checked on by default. So it's important to go within the platform and control these things. But there's things like visual touch-ups where they will expand your image to fit a certain placement, like story. Say you have a lifestyle image of your product. Meta will actually extend the top and bottom just to make it fit. And you don't know exactly what that's going to look like until it's actually out in the wild. And there's other things like music and adapting multiple images as a video slideshow. And sometimes with music, they'll just put a random song that you don't choose, and it could be damaging to a brand image or the brand voice of a company. When
Yeah,
you
yeah,
have
absolutely. So
random
this
things happen like
again,
that.
automated junk that like it's supposed to make your ad better, but just ends up just trashing your image, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we've kind of shit on Facebook pretty hard. So let's change gears over to Google for maybe a little bit. I don't
Joe,
know about
before we go to Google,
yeah.
Calvin hit on one really, really important point that I want to reiterate. A lot of these new features and functionality that we just discussed, the multi-advertiser, the site links, the auto-generated variations of copy and images, and then all of like the image creative enhancement, a lot of that stuff Meta will have just auto turned on. So like not only do you have to like be aware of this stuff, like you'll have to go in there and actively turn this stuff off. And I've seen just, we build our ads out in staging campaigns, and I have seen where Meta, like when you're deploying something from a staging campaign into one of your actual live campaigns, like it will auto toggle some of that stuff back on even if you had it off. So it's
Right,
something
right,
you
right.
have to constantly be vigilant about. You have to know where these things are, and it has to be built into like your kind of pre-flight checklist for pushing ads live. Just every time you push an ad live, just like scroll through and it's like check off, check off, check off every time. So that was a really important point that Calvin brought up, and I just wanted to double down on it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point, John. Because yeah, it's one of those things where like you turn the thing on and just won't the damn thing won't stay off, right? Like, and that's a huge pain that we have to deal with all the time.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
think ultimately they try to make it a little bit more user friendly for the average person to start advertising on their platform,
yep.
especially people that aren't educated and knowledgeable about these things, which is why I think it's important for people to see this video, because there's things that they do that will make it easier for you to get something out in the wild and for to create variations for your ads. But at the same time, you have to be careful with certain aspects, like the
Yep,
creative
100%.
advantage plus.
Yep, good stuff. Okay, let's see. I know we wrote like a whole blog article about 8 ways that Google wastes your ad budget. So we'll try to stay away from some of those topics that are already covered. We'll add the link to that blog post in the show notes here. I think something that we've always kind of joked about is how much broad match, how terrible it is. But actually, recently, we've started to see phrase match actually start to act quite a bit more like broad match. One of the kind of recent things that we've seen in the search query report was, so I can't remember what exactly what the search query is, but like the search term included 0 actual words from the phrase match search keyword. So that's something brand new. I've never seen it that egregious in terms of like what it's supposed to match. But in my from my experience, and I've been in Google ads for like 13 years now, phrase match means like that phrase is in the search query, and apparently that's not what it means anymore. So that's definitely raised some flags for us in our internal processes to say like, okay, we've got to be really really vigilant on like the search query report. Speaking with other marketers, running search campaigns, we're like, hey, yeah, we're doing, we focus primarily on like exact and phrase match, and then sometimes we'll run, broad match in like either a different ad group or maybe even a different campaign. But yeah, it seems like they understand that that's what the smarter marketers are doing, and they're just being like, you don't get to do that anymore. So yeah, most recently it seems like phrase match has gotten ruined as well. So that's a new thing for this year that we're going to try to keep a really really close eye on. So all the search marketers out there, you're not safe with phrase match anymore either. So you got to be hyper vigilant on that search query report. John,
Yeah.
what else? What are you saying this year?
Well, not as much different in Google than in Meta. I will say that one of the things that, and I know we've already kind of rehashed this, or we spoke about this already in other blogs, maybe even in other reels that we've done. But one of the key things that I always make sure is toggled off in Google account is the search network and the display network.
Yep, absolutely.
That is, and just reading it, directly from Google, its ads can appear near Google search results and other Google sites when people search for your terms that are relevant to your keywords. And that's including Google search partners. So Joe, correct me if I'm wrong here, but that is essentially saying that, if some, tiny little blog on some super niche topic is a partner with Google, you could potentially be running an ad on their site, which is likely completely irrelevant. Like their traffic would be irrelevant to, the traffic that you're trying to get to your site.
Yeah, that's what that means,
Yeah.
more or less.
So that's search network, and the display network is, they say it's an easy way to get additional conversions. It's similar or lower cost than search with unused search budget.
That's cute.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are two things that, we always ensure are toggled off. And again, it all just comes back to maintaining as much control over your ads as possible by every facet possible.
Yep. Yeah, and those are easy because like as soon as you build the campaign, there's just 2 of these little check boxes. Just make sure they're unchecked.
And again, they will be defaulted on. You have to toggle them off.
Yeah, little things like that. Calvin, what about you? What's your favorite Google feature?
Yeah, so I actually wanted to piggyback off of the meta discussion and how Meta has removed exclusions from their audience targeting. I wanted to kind of carry that into PMAX because in PMAX,
Yeah.
they don't allow for negative keywords. So you can't do brand exclusions unless you go through this convoluted series of menus where you have to go through this whole process to um, make sure you have the list of terms that you don't want to appear in. They did make it a little bit simpler recently for brand terms. Say one of our clients, for example, their name is also the name of an animal,
Yeah. Yep.
Siloloris, right? So I think it's important to be able to negate some terms around, you know, the brand name. Say like the brand has like multiple meanings, or the product actually, you know, The name of the product could mean multiple things. I think it's good for us to be able to exclude those ones to make sure we're appearing in the right searches. PMAX is meant for simplicity and to allow the algorithm to find your audience, but at the same time, I think maintaining a certain level of control as to what search terms you show up on is important. And they made it very, very difficult to.
Yeah, because you have to like submit like a support ticket, and they've got like some template that you have to fill things out in, and then you send it into them, and then wait like 10 to 14 business days, and then you've got a negative keyword, right? Like it's pretty bad.
It's a pretty tough process, and you have to dig into documentation quite a bit to get to that point.
Yeah. And again, we're talking about Alphabet here. This is an organization with, the best software engineers in the world and like literally infinite money. So like why you're making this so difficult is like, I don't know, buddy. So, well, but unfortunately, it is what it is. But part of us having this discussion is to help kind of get that information out there, so that when you necessarily have to run Google Ads to grow your business, at least you're not running into these little potholes.
One other thing that occurred to me when Calvin brought up PMAX is the actual like photo asset portion of PMAX now.
Yeah.
So, Google, again, just, trying to make it simpler for somebody who is not experienced in the platform, just making it super easy to build out an ad. One of the things that they will do is typically to add the images to a PMAX asset group, you would manually upload the images that you want. And then Google does make it easy to crop those images into the right sizes for the placement. So kudos to Google on that. That's really nice. It's really easy to do. But Google will also, aside from letting you upload images, they will also automatically pull images from your website into that. And they will also say, hey, it looks like you're selling, you know, again, I'll say sporting goods. Here's some stock photos of just people playing sports in different sporting goods as well. And, if you're a savvy marketer, you'll pick up on that and you'll see, obviously, like these are not my images. And they're even in another section. However, one thing that we ran into being an agency, and this is where you just have to be really careful. As an agency, we inherit a lot of accounts that are already active. And, one of the big things that we do when a client gets onboarded is to try to learn as much about the company and the brand as possible, but you're obviously not going to be as good as somebody internal. And if you inherit an account and you're building out a PMAX campaign, there's likely images in there already uploaded from previous managers. And, you just have to keep a really sharp eye in those separate sections, because you might say like, hey, this is a great image. And then you realize like, oh, that's either AI or, oh, that's a stock photo. That's not one of their photos.
Yeah.
So there are some pitfalls with PMAX images. You just have to be careful. It gives you kind of the headings of like library, which is like the already uploaded, and then from your website, and then like I forget specifically what it is, auto generated or whatnot, but that's one other thing to really be careful of when you're building out a PMAX campaign, especially if you're with an agency inheriting an already active account.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, to your point, John, like we've cleaned up a lot of that stuff in the past when we've taken on new clients. Nice. Well, I think there's some good nuggets in there. Hopefully this, we'll try to add specifics in the show notes and kind of follow up with blog posts, etc. But, there's all kinds of stuff like this in any of the ad platforms. We do Pinterest, LinkedIn, and Amazon. And, while we're not talking about them today, they're definitely not innocent either. So maybe we'll follow up with another discussion there. But hopefully everyone listening in on this discussion today has gotten something tangible that will help them to, run some more efficient ad campaigns. So yeah, if you enjoyed the discussion, give us a follow on the socials, like and subscribe to the video. And also we've got our email newsletter that goes out monthly with more information like this. So get in touch with us and we will see you later. Thanks, everyone.